The Power of Concentration by William Walker Atkinson. Chapter 1. The Will's Path to Success. Every individual possesses a dual nature. One aspect impels us toward advancement, while the other seeks to retard our progress. The disposition we cultivate and upon which we concentrate determines our ultimate character. Both natures strive for dominance. The will alone adjudicates this conflict. By a single supreme exertion of volition, a man may alter his entire trajectory and well nigh achieve miracles. You may be that very individual. You can be, provided you will it so, for the will can discover a path or construct one. I could effortlessly compile a volume citing instances where men, trudging along in a prosaic manner, were suddenly aroused, as if awakening from a deep slumber, to cultivate their latent potential, thereby becoming transformed individuals from that moment forward. You alone possess the authority to determine when this pivotal moment shall arrive. It is a matter of election whether we permit our diviner self to govern us or whether we submit to the brute within. No man is compelled to perform any action he does not desire to undertake. He is, therefore, the director of his existence, should he choose to exercise his will. That which we are destined to accomplish is the result of our cultivation. We resemble malleable clay and can be entirely governed by our willpower. Habit is a matter of acquisition. One often hears the remark that an individual acquires certain traits naturally, that he is a chip off the old block, implying he is merely replicating the actions of his progenitors. While this is frequently the case, there exists no necessity for it, as a person may shatter a habit the very moment he masters the assertion "I will." A man may have been thoroughly indolent throughout his life until this precise instant, yet from this time forward, he begins to achieve significance. Even the elderly have suddenly transformed and achieved marvels. I forfeited my opportunity, one laments. That may be accurate. However, by sheer force of will, we can devise a means to secure another opportunity. There is no veracity in the adage that opportunity knocks at our door but once in a lifetime. The reality is that opportunity never seeks us. Rather, we must pursue it. What typically proves to be one man's opportunity was another man's forfeiture. In this era, one man's intellect is pitted against another's. It is frequently the celerity of mental action that determines the outcome. One man contemplates, "I shall do it," yet while he procrastinates, the other proceeds and executes the task. Both possess the identical opportunity. The former will complain of his squandered chance. Yet it should impart a lesson to him, and it shall, provided he seeks the path that leads to success. Many individuals peruse excellent literature but claim they derive little benefit from it. They fail to realize that the sole function of any book or instructional course is to awaken them to their potential and stimulate them to exercise their willpower. You may instruct a person from the present until doomsday, but that individual will only comprehend what he learns for himself. You may lead him to the fountain, yet you cannot compel him to drink. One of the most beneficial practices of which I am aware is that of seeking the good in everyone and everything, for goodness resides in all things. We encourage an individual by acknowledging his virtuous qualities, and we simultaneously aid ourselves by seeking them. We secure their goodwill, which is often a most valuable asset. We receive in return that which we emanate. The time arrives when nearly all of us require encouragement and need to be buoyed up. Therefore, cultivate the habit of encouraging others, and you will discover it to be a wonderful tonic for both the recipient and yourself, for you shall receive encouraging and uplifting thoughts in return. Life affords us the opportunity for improvement. However, whether we do so depends upon how closely we adhere to what is expected of us. On the first of each month, an individual should sit and examine the progress he has achieved. If he has not met expectations, he must ascertain the cause and, through additional exertion, meet the demands of the subsequent occasion. Every time we fall behind our intended schedule, we sustain a loss, for that time is gone forever. We may discover a rationale for doing so, but most excuses are poor substitutes for action. Most objectives are possible. Ours may be an arduous task, yet the more difficult the undertaking, the greater the reward. It is the difficult endeavors that truly develop us. Anything requiring but a minor effort utilizes very few of our faculties and yields a scanty harvest of achievement. Therefore, do not shrink from a demanding task, for the accomplishment of one such feat will often confer more benefit than a dozen lesser triumphs. I am convinced that every man willing to pay the price can achieve success. The cost is not reckoned in currency, but in effort. The primary essential quality for success is the desire to act, to become something of substance. The subsequent step is to learn the method, and the next is to carry it into execution. The man best able to accomplish any feat is he who possesses a broad mind, the man who has acquired knowledge that, while perhaps foreign to the particular instance, is nevertheless of value in all cases. Thus, the man desiring success must be liberal in his education. He must acquire all the knowledge he can encompass and must be well informed not merely in one branch of his business, but in every facet of it. Such a man achieves success. The secret of success is to endeavor always to improve oneself, regardless of location or position. Learn all that you can. Do not seek to ascertain how little you can perform, but rather how much. Such a man will always be in demand, for he establishes a reputation for unceasing industry. There is always a place for him because progressive firms never permit a man of such enterprise to leave their employ if they can prevent it. The man who reaches the summit is the tenacious, spirited, hard worker, and never the timid, uncertain, or lethargic laborer. An untested man is seldom placed in a position of responsibility and power. The individual selected is one who has accomplished something, achieved results in a specific field, or assumed leadership in his department. He is positioned there due to his reputation for infusing vigor and virility into his efforts, and because he has previously demonstrated fortitude and determination. The man chosen at the crucial moment is not usually a genius, nor does he possess more talent than others. Rather, he has learned that results can only be produced by untiring, concentrated effort. He understands that miracles in business do not simply occur. He knows that the only manner in which they will transpire is by adhering to a proposition and seeing it through to completion. That is the sole secret regarding why some succeed while others fail. The successful man becomes accustomed to seeing objectives accomplished and always feels assured of success. The man who is a failure becomes accustomed to witnessing failure. He anticipates it and attracts it to himself. It is my opinion that, with the appropriate training, every man could become a success. It is truly a lamentable fact that so many men and women, rich in ability and talent, are permitted to go to waste, so to speak. Someday, I hope to witness a millionaire philanthropist establish an institution for the training of failures. I am certain he could not allocate his funds to a superior purpose. In a year's time, the science of practical psychology could achieve wonders for him. He could maintain agencies looking out for men who had lost their grip on themselves, who through indisposition had weakened their will, or who through some sorrow or misfortune had become discouraged. Initially, all they require is a modicum of assistance to reestablish themselves, yet usually they receive a downward blow instead. The result is that their latent powers never develop, and both they and the world are the losers. I trust that in the near future, someone will heed the opportunity to utilize some of his millions to arouse men who have begun to falter. All they need to be shown is that there resides within them an omnipotent source ready to aid them, provided they make use of it. Their minds need only be turned from despair to hope to enable them to regain their hold. When a man loses his grip today, he must secure his redemption through his own will. He will receive little encouragement or advice of an inspiring nature. He must usually regain the correct path alone. He must cease dissipating his energies and turn his attention to constructing a useful career. At present, we are obliged to vanquish our debilitating proclivities in isolation. One must not anticipate assistance from external sources. Rather, one must summon significant fortitude, establish unyielding resolutions, and determine to triumph over one's frailties and moral vices. In truth, no other entity can perform this task on your behalf. Others may offer encouragement. However, their capacity ends there. I can conceive of no impediment, save for a deficiency in health, that should preclude one from attaining success. There exists no other disadvantage that ought to prove insurmountable. To surmount an impediment, it is requisite only to employ greater resolve, fortitude, and volition. An individual possessing fortitude and volition may be impoverished today yet affluent within a few years. Indeed, will power constitutes a superior asset to monetary wealth, for the will shall transport one across the chasms of failure, provided one grants it the opportunity. Those who have ascended to the most exalted positions have customarily been compelled to secure their victories against formidable odds. Consider the tribulations that many of our inventors endured prior to achieving success. Frequently, they were profoundly misunderstood by their kin and acquaintances. Quite often, they lacked the fundamental necessities of existence. Nevertheless, through sheer determination and resolute courage, they contrived to sustain themselves until they perfected their inventions, which subsequently contributed significantly to ameliorating the human condition. While everyone genuinely desires to achieve something of note, there are few who will exert the requisite effort or make the necessary sacrifices to secure it. There exists but a single method to accomplish any task, and that is to proceed forthwith and execute it. A man may achieve virtually anything in this era, provided he firmly sets his heart upon the endeavor and permits nothing to impede his progress. Impediments are swiftly vanquished by the individual who sets forth to realize his heart's desire. The greater the stature of the man, the more diminutive the obstacle appears. Conversely, the lesser the man, the more formidable the obstacle seems. One must always contemplate the advantage gained by surmounting obstructions, for this perspective will instill the requisite courage for their conquest. Do not presume that you will invariably experience smooth sailing. Segments of your journey are liable to be turbulent. Do not permit these arduous intervals to render you incapacitated. persist with the expedition. The very manner in which you weather the storm reveals the caliber of material from which you are fashioned. Never succumb to idleness and lament the rugged terrain. Rather, reflect upon how delightful the pleasant intervals were. Regard with delight the unencumbered plains that lie before you. Do not allow a setback to arrest your momentum. Consider it a mere incident that must be surmounted before you may attain your ultimate objective. Chapter 2. Power of Self-Mastery. From the perspective of psychological development, man has not attained the stature he ought to possess. He lacks the self-mastery, that self-directing power of concentration, which is his inherent birthright. He has failed to cultivate himself in a manner that fosters such self-command. Every equilibrated intellect possesses faculties whose primary obligations are to engineer, direct, and focus the operations of the psyche in both a mental and physical capacity. Man must acquire the discipline to govern not merely his mind, but his corporeal movements as well. When the governing faculties autonomic remain in an uncultivated state, the individual's impulses, passions, emotions, thoughts, actions, and habits suffer from a deficit of regulation. Consequently, the process of mental concentration is compromised, not necessarily because the mind is inherently feeble in its autonomic department, but because it lacks proper training. When the self-regulating faculties are undeveloped, the impulses, appetites, emotions, and passions are granted full license to operate at will, rendering the mind impulsive, restless, emotional, and erratic in its function. It is this condition that renders mental concentration ineffectual. Where the self-guiding faculties are frail in development, the individual inevitably lacks the capacity for mental concentration. Therefore, one cannot learn to concentrate until one develops the precise powers that qualify one to exercise such focus. Thus, if you are unable to concentrate, the cause lies in one of the following: a deficiency of the motor centers, an impulsive and emotional disposition, or an untrained intellect. The latter deficiency may be swiftly eliminated through systematic practice. It is the least difficult to rectify. The impulsive and emotional state of mind is best corrected by restraining anger, passion, excitement, hatred, potent impulses, intense emotions, fretfulness, etc. It is impossible to concentrate whilst one is engulfed in any of these agitated states. These conditions may be naturally attenuated by avoiding foods and libations that possess nerve-weakening or stimulating influences, or a tendency to incite the passions, impulses, and emotions. Furthermore, it is an excellent practice to observe and associate with individuals who are steady, calm, controlled, and conservative. Remedying the deficiency of the motor centers is more arduous, for as the individual's brain remains undeveloped, he lacks willpower. To remedy this requires a significant duration. Persons so afflicted may derive benefit from reading and studying my course, The Master Mind. Many harbor the notion that entering a negative state constitutes concentration, yet this is not the case. They may be meditating, but they are not concentrating. Those who reside in a negative state for prolonged periods cannot, as a rule, concentrate effectively. Instead, they develop mental abstraction or absence of mind. Their power of concentration diminishes, and they find it difficult to focus upon any subject. Indeed, they very often injure the brain should they maintain this condition. To possess the ability to concentrate, one must possess strength of mind. The individual who is feeble-minded cannot concentrate his intellect, owing to a deficiency of will. The mind that cannot center itself upon a specific subject or thought is weak. Likewise, the mind that cannot withdraw itself from a subject or thought is equally weak. However, the person who can center his mind upon any problem, regardless of its nature, and banish any inharmonious impressions, possesses true strength of mind. Concentration, first, last, and always signifies strength of mind. Through concentration, an individual is able to marshal and sustain his mental and physical energies in their labor. A concentrated mind accords attention to thoughts, words, acts, and plans. The person who permits his mind to wander at will shall never achieve a great deal in this world. He squanders his energies. If you work, think, converse, and act aimlessly, and allow your intellect to wander from your subject to foreign fields, you will be unable to concentrate. You concentrate at the precise moment you declare, I desire to, I can, I will. Certain errors committed by some. If you waste your time perusing sensational narratives or trivial newspaper items, you excite the impulsive and emotional faculties. This signifies that you are attenuating your power of concentration. You will not act as a free engineer, capable of piloting yourself towards success. Mental concentration can only be developed by observing oneself closely. All forms of development commence with rigorous attention. You must regulate your every thought and sentiment. When you commence to observe yourself and your own acts, as well as the actions of others, you employ the faculties of autonomy. As you continue to do so, you refine these faculties until, in time, you can engineer your every thought, desire, and plan. To possess the ability to focalize the mind upon the object at hand in a conscious manner leads to concentration. Only the trained mind is capable of such focalization. To hold a thought before the mind until all faculties shall have had time to consider it constitutes concentration. The person who cannot direct his thoughts, desires, plans, resolutions, and studies cannot possibly succeed to the fullest extent. The individual who is impulsive one moment and calm the next possesses no proper control over himself. He is master neither of his mind, nor of his thoughts, feelings, and desires. Such a person cannot achieve success. When he becomes irritated, he irritates others and ruins all chances for anyone concerned to perform their best. Conversely, the person who can direct his energies and hold them at work in a concentrated manner controls his every labor and act, thereby gaining the power to control others. He can ensure his every movement serves a useful end, and every thought a noble purpose. In this era, the man who becomes excited and irritable should be regarded as an undesirable individual. The person of good breeding now speaks with slowness and deliberation. He cultivates an increasingly reposeful attitude. He is consciously attentive and holds his mind to one subject at a time. He excludes all else. When you are speaking with anyone, accord him your sole and undivided attention. Do not permit your attention to wander or be diverted. Pay no heed to anything else, but compel your will and intellect to act in unison. Begin in the morning and ascertain how self-poised you can remain throughout the day. At intervals, take an inventory of your actions during the day to determine if you have maintained your resolve. If not, ensure that you do so on the morrow. The more self-poised you are, the superior your concentration will be. Never be in excessive haste, and remember, the more you improve your concentration, the greater become your possibilities. Concentration equates to success. Because you are better able to govern yourself and centralize your mind, You become more earnest in your endeavors, and this almost invariably improves your prospects for success. When you are conversing with a person, keep your own plans in mind. Concentrate your strength upon the purpose discussed. Observe his every movement, but maintain your own plans before you. Unless you do so, you will squander your energy and fail to accomplish as much as you ought. I desire that you observe the next individual you encounter who possesses the reputation of being a strong character, a man of force. Observe and note what perfect control he exercises over his body. Subsequently, I wish for you to observe a merely ordinary person. Notice how he moves his eyes, arms, and fingers. Observe the useless expenditure of energy. These movements all degrade the vital cells and diminish the person's power in vital and neural directions. It is just as critical for you to conserve your nervous forces as it is your vital forces. By way of example, we observe an engine proceeding along the track with great smoothness. Someone opens all the valves, and the train halts. It is the same with you. If you wish to utilize your full quantity of steam, you must close your valves and direct your power of generating mental steam toward a single end. Center your mind upon one purpose, one plan, one transaction. There is nothing that depletes nerve force so rapidly as excitement. Consequently, an irritable individual is devoid of personal magnetism. He is neither admired nor beloved, and he fails to cultivate those refined qualities that a true gentleman possesses. Anger, sarcasm, and excitation debilitate an individual in this regard. The person who permits himself to succumb to excitation will, in time, become nervous, for he exhausts his nerve forces and his vital energies. The individual who cannot exercise self-control and refrain from becoming excited is incapable of concentration. When the mind can achieve true focus, all the energy of every microscopic cell is channeled into a singular avenue, and subsequently, a powerful personal influence is generated. Every individual possesses many millions of vibrating cells, and each of these harbors a center where life and energy are accumulated and generated. If this energy is not squandered but conserved and controlled, this person is influential. However, when the converse occurs, he is neither influential nor successful. Just as it is impossible for a steam engine to function with all its valves open, so too is it impossible for you to squander your energy and yet operate at maximum efficiency. Each neuron in the cortical layers of the brain is a psychic center of thought and action. Each one emanates an intelligent force of some nature, and when this force, your thoughts and motions, is kept in check by a conservative, systematic, and concentrated mind, the result will be magnetism, vitality, and health. The muscles, bones, ligaments, feet, hands, and nerves inter alia are agents for executing the mandates of the mind. The sole purpose of the volitional faculties is to mobilize the physical mechanism as the energy travels along the conduits of nerves and muscles. Precisely for this reason, if you impose voluntary control over these messages, impulses, thoughts, emotions, and physical movements, as well as over these physical instruments, you develop your faculties of self-mastery, and commensurately to the extent you succeed here, you will develop the power of concentration. Any exercise or labor that excites the mind, stimulates the senses, activates the emotions and appetites, confuses, terrifies, or incites emotional turbulence, debilitates the power of concentration. This is why all manner of excitement is deleterious. This constitutes the reason why persons who consume intoxicating spirits, who permit themselves to fall into paroxysms of rage, who engage in conflict, who consume excitatory sustenance, who indulge in song and dance and thus inflame their emotions, who are abrupt, vehement, and emotional, lack the power to concentrate. However, those whose actions are more deliberate and directed by their intelligence cultivate concentration. Occasionally, dogmatic, willful, and excitable individuals may possess the capacity to concentrate, yet it is a spasmodic, erratic concentration rather than a controlled and consistent one. Their energy functions intermittently. At times they possess an abundance, at other times very little, for it is easily excited and easily squandered. The most efficacious method of understanding this is to liken it to the discharge of a firearm. If the weapon discharges when you desire it to, it fulfills its objective. However, if it discharges before you are prepared, you will not only waste ammunition, but it is also likely to inflict damage. That is precisely what the majority of individuals do. They permit their energy to erupt, thus not only wasting it but endangering others. They squander their power and their magnetism, and thereby compromise their probability of success. Such individuals are never held in high esteem and never will be until they gain control over themselves. It will be necessary for them to practice many distinct varieties of concentration exercises, and to persist in them for a considerable duration. They must completely conquer their sudden, erratic thoughts, and regulate their emotions and movements. They must, from dawn until dusk, train the mind to be steady, and direct and maintain the energies in active employment. The lower region of the brain is the repository of this energy. Virtually all individuals possess all the dynamic energy they require if they would but concentrate it. They possess the machine, but they must also possess the engineer, or they will not make significant progress. The engineer is the self-regulating, directive force. The individual who does not develop his engineering qualities will not achieve substantial success in life. The competent engineer governs his every act. All work facilitates development. By your actions, you either progress or degenerate. This is a salient concept to bear perpetually in mind. When you are uncertain as to whether you should undertake a specific action, simply consider whether by doing so you will grow or deteriorate, and act accordingly. I am a staunch advocate for working when you work, and playing when you play. When you surrender yourself to pleasure, you can develop concentration by contemplating exclusively upon pleasure. When your mind dwells on love, think of nothing but this, and you will find you can develop a more intense love than you ever possessed before. When you concentrate your mind on the essential ego or true self, and its magnificent latent potential, you develop concentration and a higher opinion of yourself. By performing this systematically, you cultivate substantial power, because you cannot be systematic without concentrating on what you are doing. When you traverse the countryside and inhale the fresh air, studying the flora, arboreal growth, etc., you are concentrating. When you ensure your presence at your place of business at a specific time each morning, you are developing stability of habit and becoming systematic. If you form the habit of being punctual one morning, tardy the next, and even later the following one, you are not developing concentration. However, whenever you fix your mind on a certain thought and maintain your mind upon it at successive intervals, you develop concentration. If you maintain your mind on some chosen object, you focus your attention, much as the lens of a camera focuses on a certain landscape. Therefore, always maintain your mind on what you are doing, regardless of the nature of the task. Keep a vigilant guard over yourself, for unless you do, your improvement will be exceedingly slow. Practice inhaling long, deep breaths, not simply for the improvement of health, although that is a consideration of no mean significance, but also for the purpose of developing more power, more love, and more life. All work facilitates development. You may deem it imprudent to attempt to develop concentration by performing muscular exercises, but you must not forget that the mind is associated with muscle and nerve. When you steady your nerves and muscles, you steady your mind. However, allow your nerves to fall into disarray, and your mind will become erratic, and you will not possess the directive capacity, which, in other words, is concentration. Therefore, you comprehend how important exercises that steady the nerves and muscles are in developing concentration. Everyone is perpetually the recipient of impulses that must be directed and controlled if one is to lead a successful life. This constitutes the rationale for why a person must control the movements of his eyes, feet, fingers, inter alia. This is another reason why it is important to control his breathing. The slow, deep, prolonged exhalations are of immense value. They steady the circulation, the cardiac function, muscles, and nerves of the mind. If the heart palpitates, the circulation is not regular, and when the lung action is uneven, the mind becomes unsteady and not conducive to concentration. This is why controlled breathing is paramount as a foundation for physical health. You must not only concentrate your mind, but also the action of the ocular, auditory, and tactile faculties. Each of these contains subordinate intelligences that are controlled by the master engineer. You will develop much more rapidly if you thoroughly realize this. If you have ever associated with eminent personages or read their biographies, you will ascertain that they usually permit others to do the talking. It is far less arduous to speak than it is to listen. There is no better exercise for concentration than to accord rapt attention when someone is speaking. Besides learning from their discourse, you may develop both mental and physical concentration. When you clasp hands with another, simply regard your hand as containing hundreds of individual minds, each possessing an autonomous intelligence. When one infuses this sentiment into a handshake, it manifests true character. Conversely, a handshake executed with listlessness signifies timidity, a deficiency of vitality, and an absence of commanding presence. Should the manual clasp prove feeble and rigid, it betrays a nature devoid of affection, lacking in passion, and bereft of personal magnetism. Where the handshake is diametrically opposed to this description, one shall ascertain that the individual's nature corresponds accordingly. The individual lacking in benevolence possesses no magnetic quality, a deficit clearly demonstrated by their inert manual greeting. When two sufficiently evolved souls join hands, their clasp is never insubstantial. A palpable tremor of excitement traverses both parties at the convergence of these two vital currents. Affection stimulates the opposing currents inherent in positive and negative dispositions. In the absence of love, existence is stripped of its allure. The hand serves as an immediate indicator of when affection is being kindled. Consequently, one ought to study the art of the handshake and cultivate one's social sensibilities. The individual who cherishes their fellow man radiates benevolence, whereas the misanthrope mirrors only animosity. One possessed of a malevolent nature, a hateful disposition, and pernicious thoughts exhibits behavior that is erratic, aberrant, and spasmodic. Should you permit yourself to succumb to irritability, observe your respiration, and you shall derive a lesson of significant value. Observe the manner of your breathing during moments of felicity. Scrutinize your respiration when you harbor animosity. Monitor your breath when you feel enamored with the entire world and are exhilarated by noble sentiments. When replete with virtuous thoughts, one inhales a copious supply of oxygen into the lungs, and affection permeates the soul. Love facilitates human development across physical, mental, and social dimensions. Respire deeply during states of happiness to acquire vitality and fortitude. In doing so, you will stabilize your intellect, enhance your capacity for concentration, and become both magnetic and potent. If one desires to extract greater fulfillment from existence, one must contemplate affection more frequently. Absent genuine affection for a subject, one possesses neither sentiment, nor sweetness, nor magnetism. Therefore, awaken your affectionate sensibilities through the exercise of your will and cross the threshold into a more complete existence. The hand motivated by love invariably magnetizes. However, it must remain steady and disciplined. Affection can be concentrated within one's handshake, constituting one of the premier methods of influencing another. Upon the next occasion you perceive yourself becoming irritable, employ your volition to remain patient. This serves as an exemplary exercise in self-regulation. It will assist you in maintaining patience if you consciously breathe slowly and profoundly. If you discover you are commencing to speak rapidly, simply exert control over yourself and articulate slowly and distinctly. Refrain from elevating or depressing your vocal register. Focus on your determination to maintain your poise, and you will thereby ameliorate your power of concentration. When encountering individuals of consequence, assume an attitude of repose in their presence. Adhere to this practice at all times. Observe both your interlocutors and yourself. Static exercises cultivate the motor faculties and augment the power of concentration. Should you feel yourself becoming irritable, nervous, or debilitated, stand squarely upon your feet with your chest elevated. Inhale deeply, and you shall witness your irritability vanish as a silent calm descends upon you. If you are habituated to associating with nervous, irritable individuals, cease this practice until you have grown robust in the power of concentration. For irritable, irate, fretful, dogmatic, and disagreeable persons will attenuate whatever powers of resistance you possess. Any exercises that afford you superior control of the ears, fingers, eyes, or feet assist in stabilizing the mind. Indeed, when the eye is steady, the mind is steady. One of the most effective methods to analyze a person is to observe their physical movements. For when we scrutinize their actions, we are investigating their mind. This is because actions are the external expressions of the intellect. As the mind exists, so too does the action. If the former is uneasy, restless, erratic, or unsteady, its resulting actions will mirror these traits. When the action is composed, it signifies that the mind is composed. Concentration denotes the mastery of both mind and body. One cannot secure dominion over the one without the other. Many individuals who appear to lack ambition possess sluggish intellects. They are steady, patient, and seemingly well-controlled. However, this does not imply that they are capable of true concentration. Such persons are indolent, inactive, slow, and listless because they lack vitality. They do not lose control simply because they possess insufficient force to require controlling. They harbor no temper, and therefore it cannot disturb them. Their actions remain steady precisely because they possess minimal energy. The natural individual is internally robust, energetic, and forceful, yet their energy, force, strength, thoughts, and physical movements remain strictly under their command. If a person lacks energy, both mental and physical, they are obliged to develop it. If they possess energy which they cannot direct and focus upon a singular point, they must acquire the discipline to do so. A man may be exceedingly capable, but unless he exercises his will to control his abilities, they shall avail him nothing. We encounter much discourse regarding the benefits of physical culture, yet the true advantage of this pursuit is frequently obscured. There is nothing that engages the faculties in a sustained and continuous manner as effectively as static exercises. For, as previously articulated, when one learns to govern the body, one is simultaneously gaining dominion over the mind. Chapter 3. Achieving your objectives. The unenlightened individual may inquire, by what means can one acquire an objective merely through the act of volition? I posit that through the application of concentration, one may secure any object of desire. Every aspiration is capable of gratification. However, whether such gratification occurs is contingent upon your focused dedication to seeing that desire realized. The mere act of wishing for an outcome will not precipitate its arrival. To pine for possession betrays a fundamental weakness rather than a conviction that you shall truly obtain it. Therefore, one must never simply wish, for we do not inhabit an age of fable or folklore. One expends precisely as much cerebral energy in vain imaginings as one does when contemplating matters of significant worth. Exercise prudence regarding your desires. Construct a mental visualization of your objective and fixate your will upon this image until it materializes. Never permit yourself to drift aimlessly, devoid of helm or rudder. Ascertain precisely what you intend to achieve and strive with all your might to execute it. Therein lies the path to success. Maintain the conviction that you are capable of accomplishing whatever task you undertake. Many individuals initiate endeavors, yet harbor a premonition at the outset that they shall fail. Invariably, they do. I shall provide an illustrative example. A gentleman visits a merchant in search of a specific article. The clerk responds, "I regret to inform you that we do not possess it." However, the man who is resolute in acquiring the item inquires if the clerk might know where it may be procured. Upon receiving another unsatisfactory response, the determined purchaser consults the manager, and ultimately, he ascertains where the article may be purchased. That constitutes the entire secret of concentrating upon the acquisition of one's desires. Furthermore, remember that your soul is a center of omnipotence, and you are capable of accomplishing whatever you will to achieve. I shall discover a path or construct one, is the spirit that secures victory. I am acquainted with a gentleman who currently presides over a substantial banking institution. He commenced his tenure there in the capacity of a messenger boy. His father commissioned a button for him bearing the letter P and affixed it to his coat. He declared, "Son, that P serves as a reminder that one day you are destined to become the president of your bank. I desire for you to retain this concept within your mind. Each day, execute some action that will advance you closer to your objective." Every evening following supper, he would inquire, "Son, what have you accomplished this day?" In this manner, the aspiration was perpetually maintained in his consciousness. He concentrated upon becoming the president of that institution, and indeed he succeeded. His father instructed him never to disclose to anyone the significance of the letter P. A considerable amount of ridicule was directed toward it by his associates. Although they attempted to ascertain its meaning, they never succeeded until he was appointed president, at which time he revealed the secret. Do not squander your mental faculties on mere wishes. Do not dissipate your energies by attempting to satisfy every transient whim. Concentrate upon achieving something of genuine worth. The individual who adheres steadfastly to a purpose is not the individual who meets with failure. Power to him who power exerts. Emerson. Success in the present day depends largely upon concentrating on the interior law of force. For when one does this, one awakens those mental powers or forces which, when utilized in commerce, ensure permanent results. Until you are capable of doing this, you have not reached the zenith of your potential in the utilization of your forces. This magnificent universe is interwoven with myriads of forces. You carve your own station, and whether it is significant depends entirely upon you. Through the indestructible and unconquerable law, you can, in due time, accomplish all righteous things. Therefore, do not fear to undertake whatever you truly desire to achieve and are willing to purchase with effort. Anything that is righteous is possible. That which is necessary shall inevitably occur. If an action is right, it is your duty to execute it, notwithstanding that the entire world may deem it to be wrong. God and one always constitute a majority. Or, in explicit terms, that omnipotent interior law which is God, combined with the organism that represents you, is capable of conquering the whole world if your cause is absolutely just. Do not utter the words, "I wish I were a great man." You are capable of doing anything that is proper and that you desire to perform. Simply declare, "You can. You will. You must." Simply realize this truth, and the remainder shall prove facile. You possess the latent faculties and forces to subdue anything that attempts to interfere with your designs. Let the troubles and responsibilities of life come thick and fast. I am ready for them. My soul is unconquerable. I represent the infinite law of force, or of all power. This God within is my all-sufficient strength and ever-present help in time of trouble. The more difficulties, the greater its triumphs through me. The harder my trials, the faster I go in the development of my inherent strength. Let all else fail me. This interior reliance is all-sufficient. The right must prevail. I demand wisdom and power to know and follow the right. My higher self is all-wise. I now draw nearer to it. Chapter 4. The Silent Business Force. It is imperative that one first comprehends the immense magnitude of thought. A thought characterized by profound fear has been known to blanch a person's hair within a single night. Consider the instance of a prisoner condemned to execution, who was informed that if he would acquiesce to an experiment and survive the ordeal, he would be granted his freedom. He consented. The objective was to ascertain how much blood a human could lose and yet retain life. It was arranged that blood would ostensibly drip from an incision made in his leg. The cut inflicted was superficial, from which a negligible quantity of blood issued. The chamber was shrouded in darkness, and the prisoner believed the dripping sound he perceived actually emanated from his leg. By the subsequent morning, he was deceased solely due to psychological terror. The two aforementioned vignettes provide a modest glimpse into the potency of thought. To thoroughly grasp the power of the mind is of inestimable value to you. Through concentrated cerebral energy, you may mold yourself into whatever you desire. By virtue of thought, you can significantly augment your efficiency and fortitude. You are encompassed by a myriad of thoughts, some benevolent, others malevolent, and you are certain to absorb the latter if you do not cultivate a positive mental disposition. If you will scrutinize the superfluous moods of anxiety, worry, despondency, discouragement, and others that result from uncontrolled cogitation, you will recognize the paramount importance of mastering your thoughts. Your thoughts constitute the architects of your being. When I traverse the thoroughfare and observe the faces of various individuals, I can discern how they have spent their lives. It is all manifest upon their visages, much as a mirror reflects one's physical countenance. In observing these faces, I cannot escape the reflection that the majority of people one encounters have squandered their existence. The comprehension of the power of thought will awaken within you possibilities of which you have never dreamed. Never forget that your thoughts construct your environment and your associations. As your thoughts alter, so too will these external factors. Is this not a pragmatic lesson to acquire? Benevolent thoughts are constructive. Malevolent thoughts are destructive. The desire to act with rectitude carries with it immense power. I desire for you to thoroughly realize the significance of your thoughts and how to render them valuable. To understand that your thoughts travel to you over invisible conduits and influence you. If your thoughts are of an elevated nature, you become connected with individuals of the same mental caliber, and you are enabled to assist yourself. If your thoughts are duplicitous, you will attract duplicitous individuals to transact with you, who will attempt to defraud you. If your thoughts are of the righteous variety, you will inspire confidence in those with whom you interact. As you acquire the goodwill of others, your own confidence and strength will increase. You will soon ascertain the wondrous value of your thoughts and discover how serene you can remain even when circumstances are most arduous. Such thoughts of rectitude and good will bring you into harmony with individuals of substance in the world, who are capable of offering assistance should you require it, as nearly everyone does at intervals. You may now perceive why it is of such consequence to concentrate your thoughts into the proper channels. It is absolutely essential that people should repose confidence in you. When two individuals meet, they lack the time to investigate each other's antecedents. They accept one another according to instinct, which can usually be relied upon. You encounter a person and his attitude generates a suspicion within you. The probability is that you cannot articulate why, yet something informs you. Have no dealings with him, for if you do, you will regret it. Thoughts precipitate actions. Therefore, be vigilant regarding your thoughts. Your life will be molded by the thoughts you harbor. A spiritual power is perpetually available to your thought, and when you are worthy, you can attract all manner of benevolence without arduous effort on your part. The sun's rays illuminate our gardens, yet we can cultivate trees that obstruct the solar radiance. There are invisible forces poised to assist you if you do not think and act to intercept them. These forces operate silently. You harvest that which you sow. You possess concentrated within you powers that, if developed, will afford you happiness greater than you can even imagine. The majority of people rush through life, literally driving away the very objectives they seek. By concentration, you can revolutionize your existence, accomplishing infinitely more without exhaustive exertion. Look within yourself, and you will discover the greatest mechanism ever constructed, the art of sagacious speech. In order to speak wisely, One must secure at least a partial concentration of the faculties and forces upon the subject at hand. Verbalization interferes with the focusing powers of the mind, as it withdraws attention to the external. Therefore, it is hardly to be compared with that profound silence of the subconscious mind, where deep thoughts and the silent forces of high potency are evolved. Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.